Welcome to Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson. Thanks for tuning in today. Our topic is how to age well, and we're speaking with Dr. Ian Smith, author of the new book, Eat Your Age. Welcome. It's great to see you, Dr. Smith.
Always good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yes. And so this is such a great topic because there's been so much in the news lately about what we should be eating, the problems with processed foods, and the SAD diet, the standard American diet. And you have all the answers, and we can start eating well even in our 30s, right?
Absolutely. Listen, so many people have been saying to me, what is it? Why can't I eat the same thing I did in my 30s as I am in my 50s or my 20s? I can't move the same way. And it's because our bodies are changing all the time. Every decade our body changes. That's just a fact of life. But we also have to make the adaptations to how our body is changing, and we're not doing that. We have to change how we eat. We have to change how we move. And Eat Your Age basically says that for each decade of your life, there are certain nutrients that are best for you. There are certain medical tests you need to get. There are medical numbers you need to know. There are actually exercises that are safest and more efficient. And at the end of each decade, I'm going to give you a 30-day customized meal plan that will incorporate those top 10 power nutrients for your particular decade. So Eat Your Age says, listen, yes, we're getting older. We're lucky to be getting old, by the way. But it's also a time to think about how do we invest in ourselves.
Right. And so we're going to break this down to 30s, 40s, 50s, 60 plus. So let's go ahead and start with the 30s. You say in the 30s, calcium is a really big deal.
Oh, my goodness.
Why?
Well, because 30s is about a foundation. You are building your foundation for the future. Think about a bank account, and you're putting a deposit in now, a health account, so that later on you can withdraw. So calcium is important, particularly for women, but men too. Calcium is important for strong bones and for teeth. And our body is mineralized by the acts of calcium, so it makes it dense. So we talk about having good bone density. So there are things, of course, like dairy, that, cottage cheese, for example, is a great source of calcium, but also broccoli. We don't often think about broccoli being calcium. So in the book, I list what the different nutrients are that you need for your decade. Then I tell you what it does in your body. For example, explaining that calcium works on your bones and teeth. But then I want you to know the food sources. And that's why we have the food samples here, so people understand it's not abstract. People have to know, when I go to the grocery store, what do I need to get for calcium? I then talk about iron. Okay, iron's important because it is the building block of hemoglobin. That's the protein inside of the red blood cell that carries your oxygen.
Okay.
So you hear people say, oh, he or she, they're iron deficient. They have iron deficiency anemia. They don't have enough iron in their body. So there are food sources. Yes, you can take a supplement, and some people actually need a supplement, but there are food sources of iron. For example, spinach.
Spinach has a lot of iron in it.
A lot of iron in it. Nuts, like almonds, also have iron in it.
Oh, really?
And a little bonus, with something like almonds, you also get some protein. So yes, spinach is a whole big nutrient category that's important in your 30s. And then something called vitamin B9. You don't hear about that very often, by the way.
Not at all, B9.
B9. It's also called folate. And folate's important because it helps with your red blood cell formation. But if you are a woman of childbearing age, this helps prevent birth defects in newborns. Okay, neurological birth defects. So where can you get vitamin B9? Avocado is great. And the reason why I like avocado, it also has monounsaturated fats. We'll talk about that in our 40s when we get there. But just so you know, avocado also has monounsaturated fat. Beans, for example, have tons of vitamin B9 in it. And eggs. Eggs are good. So eggs just don't have vitamin B9. They also have protein. We'll talk about that in our 60s plus. But these are just a few of the nutrients for your decade. Once again, you're building for the future.
So when you talk about beans, is there what kind of beans are those? They're white.
Yeah, so you can have cannellini beans, which are white beans, but you can also do pinto beans. All kinds of beans will have vitamin B9 in it.
All beans are good?
Yeah, it's your
They're the musical fruit?
That's right, that's right. But it's your flavor profile. What do you like to eat? Some people like white beans. Some prefer pinto beans. Black beans are great. The other great thing about beans, protein, B9, and fiber. And we'll talk about protein and fiber in some later decades, but yeah, beans are awesome.
And also about eggs, eggs are sort of controversial. You hear people saying don't eat eggs because of the cholesterol, and then you hear some people saying, well, egg whites are the only thing. What about the yolks, and how many eggs are safe?
Listen, people overdo it when it comes to vilifying foods, right? Eggs should not be vilified. Eggs are healthy in moderation. The egg whites, yes, that's when you concentrate the protein. So people talk about eating more protein in the egg whites. But, you know, also the full egg is actually completely fine. I think that people have to get away from making things that have been tried, true, and tested for years, making them the bad guys. Eggs are wonderful.
Yeah, and the yolk is actually good because it has that choline in it. So go ahead and eat the eggs.
That's right. There's
okay,
nutrition
you're
in the
giving
yolk
the eggs
also.
a stamp of
eggs,
approval.
absolutely, absolutely. And also how you prepare your eggs, right? I mean, you want to make sure that you prepare it in a healthier way. Scrambled eggs are great. Fried eggs, you know, it's a different situation. But, you know, it's also just not, by the way, these are God's natural gifts to us, right? Food is thy medicine. And it's not necessarily always the ingredient, it's what we do to the ingredient, what we add to it, how we process it. So we take this beautiful, glorious, healthy array of foods and we do things to it to make it less healthy.
Yeah, these are the whole foods. All right, we're going to take a break and be right back with Dr. Ian Smith. The book is called Eat Your Age. Coming up, we're going to talk about what to eat when you're in your 40s. Stay with us. Welcome back to Healthy Living. We're talking about how to age well with Dr. Ian Smith, author of the new book, Eat Your Age. Love the title. We talked about the main thing we should be eating in our 30s. Let's move to the 40s. And you talk about how important monounsaturated fats are. A lot of people are like, what are they? Those are the good fats.
That's right. Well, 40s is a time of change. So there are hormonal changes. There's also energy changes. So let's start with what we call the MUFAs, the monounsaturated fats. These are important because they do two things. They raise your HDL, which is the good cholesterol.
Good cholesterol.
They lower the bad cholesterol, which is the LDL. So monounsaturated fats, which you can find in things like olive oil and sesame seed oil, these are important because they actually do that kind of change to your fat profile,
Yeah,
and that's
olive
important.
Olive oil is so wonderful.
Oh,
you
my
know,
goodness.
they say the Mediterranean diet always comes out on top as one of the best diets, and mostly because olive oil is sort of at the center of the Mediterranean diet.
They put it in everything.
Yeah.
They sear their food in it. They add it to everything. Olive oil, I can't say enough good things about it. And so that is what's important in your 40s. Also, we talk about energy. This is a time where energy demands are increased. You're kind of getting further along in your career. You may have a family. It's just you're really busy, so you need more energy. Antioxidants, which we have here represented by the blueberries, are important. They're raspberries, blackberries, artichokes. These are antioxidants. They do two things. One, they actually can fight things called free radicals. Those are molecules in your body that try to kill your cells.
Right.
And the antioxidants fight against them. That's number one. Number two, they give you an energy boost. And so when you hear people all the time talk about, oh, you need antioxidants, that's why they're saying it. And typically, color of fruits and vegetables represents a good source of antioxidants.
So question about the olive oil. You know, when I look for olive oil in the grocery store, the whole aisle is olive oil, and I never know which one to choose. Because I've heard that sometimes manufacturers put bad oil in with the olive oil, good olive oil.
They're pretty much mostly the same. There's some differences in the flavor profile, right? But as far as the health nutrients, most olive oils that are pure olive oil, like extra virgin olive oil that's pure, most of them are what they are. One of the tricks, by the way, is to look at the back of the label and make sure that it has a few amount of ingredients in there. The fewer the ingredients, the less processed it is, so the more natural it is, and that's better for you.
And question about the blueberries. We all know that those are the superfood,
That's right.
but they're expensive. Is it okay to buy frozen?
Yes, so frozen blueberries, and frozen fruits and vegetables in general, by the way, are fine as long as there's nothing added to it. That's the key. So you want them what's called flash frozen. That means that they are harvested, they're frozen right away, so it keeps its nutrients in the more natural state, and they don't add things to it. So just make sure when you're buying frozen fruits and vegetables, there's nothing added to it.
Nothing added, but they are cheaper that way.
Yes, absolutely. And lastly, vitamin D. Vitamin D is important for bone health. Vitamin D helps our bones absorb calcium and phosphorus, and then it helps our bones to retain the calcium and phosphorus. So things like yogurt, also if you have some mushrooms that have been sun-drenched, they may have some vitamin D in it. But these are just an example of what 3 nutrients of 10 that you can find in the book could be very beneficial for you in your 40s.
The good fats, the vitamin D, and the antioxidants.
Absolutely.
You know, I saw somewhere that most Americans are vitamin D deficient because we get vitamin D from the sun, but nobody goes in the sun anymore.
So we're not getting enough sun, Also, there's not a lot of vitamin D in foods, by the way, and naturally. So sometimes you have to have vitamin D fortified foods. Fortified means we've added it to it.
Like milk.
Milk is vitamin D fortified. Cereals can be vitamin D fortified. Anytime you see the word fortified, that means that in the manufacturing process, they added something to it. In this case, it's fortified with vitamin D.
So, you know, you talk in your book about the foods that are so important for various decades of your life, but also there are exercises and also lifestyle practices people should be involved in. Can you talk about that briefly?
Absolutely. Listen, exercise is important. As you get older, they become more important. People are doing just the opposite. They're exercising less when they need to exercise more. In order to counteract the natural slowing down that the body goes through due to aging, you need to get out and move. And not just that, by the way, you have to, and we'll talk about this in our 60s plus, you have to lift weights.
Lift weights.
Resistance, it's called resistance or strength training is important, whether it's weights or bands, to keep your muscles in the right shape.
As we age, a lot of us are worried about heart disease. It's the #1 killer. And so a lot of people, as they age, they only are interested in the cardio for your heart. But you're saying don't forget to lift the weights.
Got to add the protein and you got to add the muscles, and we'll do that in the future decades.
All right. Well, we're going to take another break and be right back with Dr. Ian Smith, author of the book Eat Your Age. We're going to talk about what to eat when you are in your 50s. Stay with us. Welcome back to Healthy Living. We're talking with Dr. Ian Smith, author of the new book, Eat Your Age, about the best foods to eat depending on how old you are. Let's talk about, Dr. Smith, what we should be focusing on in our 50s. You say fiber. We really need to pay attention to fiber. What is fiber?
Yeah, fiber is fantastic in our 50s. Listen, the 50s are a decade where you are having concerns about heart, bone, and gastrointestinal. So that's our focus. I'm in the middle of my 50s. This is how I live. This is how I eat. So let's start with fiber. You see back here, we have fiber in apples, for example. You can have fiber in beans. Fiber is important because it helps keep our gastrointestinal tract regular, okay? As we age, our gut is not processing things as fast, which is why as you get older, you really need to eat less red meat. We can't digest it as well as we used to when we were younger. That's just part of aging. The other thing about fiber is it does two really good things. It helps to lower our cholesterol levels for people who are suffering from high cholesterol, but it can also help regulate blood sugar levels.
Right.
So fiber for people who are pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetics is very important to help them control their blood sugar levels. So whether it's in apples or beans or leafy greens, you want to make sure you're getting your fiber in. And most people, by the way, are consuming only about 50 to 60% of the amount of fiber they actually need.
And when you say it helps you keep your blood sugar in control, when you eat enough fiber, it helps control those cravings for sugar.
We call it feel full fiber. Makes you feel full longer. And so fiber is wonderful from that perspective. We also talk about vitamin C in our 50s. Why? Because our immune system. You want to give a jolt to your immune system. You want your body to be able to fight infections. Vitamin C, we know you get it from oranges and orange juice. That's easy.
Yeah.
But let's kind of step it up a little bit. So peppers, you know, you take peppers and you chop them up and you take some chopped up red onions or yellow onions and saute that. You can put that mixture over anything, by the way. It's so good. But peppers are full of vitamin C, which is also an antioxidant, but also tomatoes.
Tomatoes.
Tomatoes are full of vitamin C, and they're full of another antioxidant called lycopene.
Lycopene.
Lycopene is important for men. It helps prevent prostate cancer.
Oh, prostate cancer.
Yes,
Lots
absolutely.
of men have that.
100%.
Yeah.
And so, you know, vitamin C is great. I also like to take some cucumbers, chop it up, make a cucumber tomato salad. Is very yummy, very healthy.
Put some olive oil on
Put some
that.
olive
We know
oil in
that's
there.
good.
There you go, exactly. And then what's also important in our 50s is omega-3s. Omega-3s are the good fats.
Good fats.
They are good for your heart. They are good for your brain. It's important as we age that we want to prevent cognitive decline. Omega-3s can help with that. And so here we have some salmon, my favorite fish. It's a fatty fish. Fatty fish have nice amount of omega-3s. You could do mackerel, you could do tuna, you could even do sardines. Good for omega-3s. Also chia seeds.
Chia.
If you said to me, what is one of the most powerful foods that have so many different nutritional benefits, it would be chia seeds. What I like to do with chia seeds is make overnight oats. So in my recipe book, there's a recipe book called the Eat Your Age official recipe book. I have 150 tasty, affordable, simple, healthy recipes. One of my favorites is overnight oats, where you take some almond milk, you take some oats, you take some chia seeds, some pomegranate seeds. You can slice whatever fruit you want in there, put it in a mason jar, put it in the refrigerator for 8 hours or overnight, come back, Oh my goodness, is it delicious?
Oh, wonderful. And so when you talk about fish, eating fish, I heard that we're not supposed to eat too much fish because of the mercury. Is that true, or is that a myth?
It's how the fish was raised and where it was caught. The ideal fish in the ideal world would be wild-caught fish. So when you go to the store, look to see how the fish was caught. A lot of stores will tell you it was farm-raised, but they'll say it was responsibly farm-raised. And here's the idea. The idea is if fish are grown in very tight environments, then they actually swim around, they cannibalize each other, and they're also eating the waste products from the other fish. So it starts multiplying within the fish, okay? Which is why you want fish that are responsibly raised. They're raised in open waters that are running through. And obviously the ideal is out on a pole.
Yeah.
That's the best fish. So it's not that eating too much fish is going to do that. It's what type of fish. If it's canned fish that's high in mercury or it's not responsibly caught, that could be a problem.
All right, and so we talk about fish, and it is expensive if you buy it like that.
Yes.
Is it okay if we get it in the canned as long as it says wild caught?
Yes. So wild caught, or pole caught, and by the way, canned in water. You want to make sure it's canned in water so it's healthy.
Not oil.
Right. I eat a lot of tuna fish, and I eat, you know, that type of tuna fish that's canned in water, that's been pole cut.
Because the canned is a lot cheaper, and it's nice to know that it's healthy that way, too.
Right.
All right, we're going to take another quick break and be right back with Dr. Ian Smith. Once again, the book is called Eat Your Age. We're going to talk about what to eat in your 60s and above when we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Healthy Living. We're talking with Dr. Ian Smith, author of the new book, Eat Your Age. We're going to talk about what to eat in your 60s and beyond, the healthiest foods. But before we do, I wanted to talk about the book. And it's so interesting because even though it's a book, it's actually interactive because you have QR codes in there that people can scan and get more information.
Welcome to the new age. So in the old days, I'd have to take an illustrator and try to demonstrate all these different exercises. Those days are over. Now with QR codes, you can actually hit your phone with your phone, and you will see all the videos of me showing you the exercises that are appropriate for your decade of life. And by the way, a lot of these exercises, no machine required. They're bodyweight exercises or they're resistance bands. So there's a plethora of exercises that you can see in the back of the book by just hitting your phone with the QR code.
So even though it's called Eat Your Age, there's a lot more information about things that we can be doing otherwise, other than our diet. But really, diet kind of tends to be the most important.
That's right.
And, you know, folks in their 60s and beyond need to really pay attention to protein. And, you know, a lot of older folks don't do that.
You could not have said it any better. Protein is so critical as we get into our 60s plus. Why? It's the building block of muscle. And a lot of people as they age are not doing muscle building. You have to build your muscles. The body as it ages naturally wants to have the muscles atrophy, to shrink, to weaken. You have to counter that. Why? Muscle means increased metabolism. It means less falls. People who are falling and clipping their feet on the curb or the steps is because they have muscle imbalance and muscle weakness. Lastly, it's important for your joints. Good, strong muscles help protect your joints. And as you get older, you know, people start having joint issues. And so muscles are important. Protein is the building block of your muscles. You can get them, of course, in animal products. Things like chicken, tuna are a great source. But you can also get protein in non-animal sources like lentils.
Oh, wow.
Lentils, beans, chickpeas, legumes, they are all great sources of protein. And the last thing I want to say about protein and muscles, people as they age should lift weights. Cardio is great for your heart. It's great for your lungs. Keep doing it. But you need to add resistance or strength training, whether it's bands or weights or body weight, to keep building your muscles.
So you're saying as we age, our muscles, especially in our 60s and beyond, our muscles just naturally deteriorate. So if we do nothing, our muscles are going to shrink. So we need to fight that.
That's right. Avoid the temptation to give up. You got to fight back and look at it as a chance to be opportunistic and grow rather than recede and draw in. You got to get bigger. So also we talk about potassium. So potassium is important. Potassium is important for contractions, muscle contractions. It's also important to make sure it's an electrolyte, by the way, like sodium is an electrolyte. It's important to have potassium to make sure that the cellular fluid inside of your body, that level is correct. So you can find potassium in things like bananas, but you can also find it in bran cereals. We always know about potassium. When athletes are working out and they get cramps, you say they're potassium deficient. Well, because it helps with muscular contraction, and they've don't have enough potassium on board, so bananas, but also bran, very important.
Bran cereal.
Yes, absolutely. And then lastly is vitamin B12. People don't talk about vitamin B12 very often, but they should. As we age, our gastrointestinal tract cannot absorb it as well. And so you need to make sure you are either getting foods with vitamin B12 or that you are getting a supplement with vitamin B12. So, for example, for foods, we can find it in our sardines, has vitamin B12.
Huh.
Yep, absolutely. And eggs, another thing with eggs. Eggs are great. I mean, vilifying eggs, there's a lot to be found in eggs, but eggs also have vitamin B12. So these are just some representation of, in our 60s plus, of the kind of foods we need to focus on.
And, you know, a lot of people say, oh, I don't like cooking, I don't know how to cook. But, you know, when you talk about eggs, everybody knows how to cook eggs. And you can cook eggs in 2 minutes. So they're so easy.
And the other thing about cooking is, yes, I understand cooking can be intimidating, which is why I wrote the recipe book, the Eat Your Age Official Recipe Book, which has 150 recipes that are 30 minutes or less, that are less than $4 per serving, that are simple, easy to purchase ingredients. Don't be afraid of cooking. That way you can control your food environment.
So, Dr. Smith, where can people find more information, not only about the book, where to get the book, but about you? You have a wonderful website.
Yeah, so my website is driansmith.com, but also on social media. On Instagram, it's at Dr. Ian Smith, spell the doctor out, I-A-N Smith. And I have a Facebook group people can join for free, and I guide them every week. We do Zoom sessions with a big community. The Facebook group is called, the title of the book, Eat Your Age.
Well, you know, you have been coming here to CBN for almost 20 years.
Yes.
It's hard to believe. And you're a man of faith.
Yep.
And you are a walking testimonial, because a lot of people probably were shocked, as I was, to find out you're 55. You look like you're in your low 40s. So
I appreciate that.
You must be living what you preach.
Eat well, move well. Motion is lotion.
Well, again, thank you so much for being here and for sharing this wonderful message. And also, thank you for your life's work. You've helped countless numbers of people.
Thank you for having me and to allow me to talk to people about all these great things. I appreciate
Our pleasure, entirely. And thanks to you for tuning in to this edition of Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson, and we'll see you again next week.